Have you ever lost everything? And when I say everything, I mean literally everything. Business collapsed, debts piling up, dreams shattered. My name is David. I'm 48 years old. And 4 years ago, I had a thriving tech company, a stable family, and a carefully planned future. Today, looking back, I realize that losing everything was the greatest blessing in disguise. If you're at rock bottom thinking there's no way out, stay with me until the end, because this story will show you that sometimes God needs to empty your hands to fill your heart. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because every Sunday I bring real transformation stories that will strengthen your faith. Let me tell you who I was. At 28 years old, fresh out of my MBA, I started my software development company with $5,000 I borrowed from my father-in-law. My wife Rachel and I worked 18-hour days from our tiny apartment. She handled client relations while I coded and pitched to potential customers. We started small, building websites and apps for local businesses. Rachel was my partner in everything. We met at a Christian conference in college, dated for 4 years, and got married with everyone's blessing. She had this simple, genuine faith that always kept me grounded. "God's got this, David," she'd say when I stressed about landing the next client. And I believed it, truly believed it back then. The first 7 years were brutal. We'd wake up at 5 a.m. and work until midnight. Many times we couldn't afford proper meals, surviving on instant ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. But Rachel made magic with whatever we had. "We're building our future," she'd smile even when exhausted. This woman was my rock, my foundation, my everything. Gradually, the business started gaining traction. We landed our first major corporate client, then a second, then a third. We hired our first employee, then a team. Within a decade, we had 40 developers and were working with Fortune 500 companies. Revenue was growing exponentially. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, enrolled our 2 kids, Emma and Jake, in excellent private schools. Rachel was able to step back from the business and focus more on our children, which she'd always wanted. She created this beautiful family routine: home-cooked dinners together, family devotionals on Wednesday nights, weekend hiking trips. I participated when I could, but increasingly the business demanded more of my attention and energy. By age 40, I had achieved everything I'd dreamed of. Solid company valued at several million, house paid off, 2 luxury cars in the garage, kids in top-tier schools heading toward Ivy League universities. Our church saw us as the model Christian family. I tithed faithfully, donated to missions, sponsored underprivileged kids. God has blessed me abundantly, and I need to give back, I would say at testimony meetings. But something was changing in me without my awareness. The business that started as a dream became an obsession. I wanted to grow bigger, earn more, be recognized in the industry. I started pursuing contracts that were riskier, more demanding. Rachel would caution me, "David, we don't need to grow this aggressively. We're doing well," but I wouldn't listen. I invested heavily in expansion, opened offices in 3 new cities, hired aggressively. Our team went from 40 to over 100 employees in 18 months. Took on venture capital funding, which meant pressure to grow at impossible rates. On paper, the company was exploding, but I was drifting from everything that truly mattered. I stopped attending Wednesday family devotionals. "I have to finish this pitch deck," became my constant excuse. Rachel started expressing concern, but always in her gentle way. "Honey, you're burning out. The kids miss you." "I miss you." I'd kiss her forehead and promise, "Just a few more months until we stabilize this growth phase. Then I'll slow down." Those few months turned into another year, then another. Jake, my eldest at 16, was excelling in robotics competitions. He'd come to show me his latest project, and I'd be on video calls with investors. "Son, let's talk about it this weekend, okay?" I'd say without even looking at his face. I saw the disappointment there, but told myself he'd understand when he was older. Emma, my 14-year-old daughter, started writing poetry. Beautiful, thoughtful pieces about family and belonging. She wanted to share them with me. "Dad, can you read this? It only takes 5 minutes." I'd glance at my watch and say, "Sweetie, I promise I'll read it tonight." But night would come and I'd be answering emails until I fell asleep at my desk. The turning point came on a regular Tuesday evening in March. I was at the office preparing for a major investor presentation. My phone rang. It was Emma crying hysterically. "Dad, come to the hospital right now." Mum collapsed at home. They're saying it's serious. My world stopped spinning. I drove like a madman to the emergency room. Found Jake and Emma huddled together in the waiting area, both crying. A doctor approached me with that look. The one doctors have when they're about to deliver devastating news. Rachel had suffered a massive stroke. They'd done emergency surgery, but the damage was severe. The next week would be critical for her survival. I camped at the hospital for days, praying, crying, bargaining with God. "Lord, please don't take her from me. I promise I'll change everything. I'll work less, be the husband she deserves. Just don't take her, please." I called our pastor, prayer warriors from church. Everyone prayed, fasted, interceded. On the fourth day, she opened her eyes briefly. She managed to squeeze my hand weakly. I was crying and apologizing. "Rachel, I'm so sorry for being absent. I'm going to change, love. We'll travel. I'll cut back on work. I'll be the husband you always deserved." She tried to smile, that sweet smile of hers. It was the last time I saw her conscious and aware. On the seventh day, early Sunday morning, the monitors started alarming. Medical staff rushed in, tried to resuscitate, but couldn't. Rachel was only 45 years old. My wife, my partner of 20 years, the mother of my children, my love, was gone. And I wasn't ready. I would never be ready. The funeral was a blur of faces and condolences. Hundreds of people came. She was beloved by everyone. People hugged me, said she was in a better place now. That God had a purpose. I heard all of it and felt anger. What purpose? Taking the best person I knew? Leaving our kids motherless? Leaving me alone? I returned to work after 10 days because I didn't know what else to do with myself. The house was too empty, too silent. Her perfume still lingered in our bedroom. Her clothes still hung in the closet. I couldn't touch anything. So I buried myself in work even deeper. Not from ambition now, but to escape the unbearable pain. Jake and Emma were devastated, but young people have this resilience. They returned to school, to their lives. But I saw it when they looked at me. They'd lost their mother and felt they were losing their father too. I was physically there but emotionally absent, numbed by grief and work. I stopped going to church. Couldn't listen to songs about God's love when he'd taken Rachel. Couldn't sing worship when my heart was shattered. Our pastor tried visiting several times, but I always had excuses. "I'm fine, Pastor Mike, just need time." But time passed, and I only got worse. I started making terrible business decisions. Accepted contracts without proper due diligence. Hired people without vetting them properly. Rachel had always been my balance, my wise counsel. Without her, I was navigating without a compass. The company I'd spent 15 years building started cracking. And I couldn't see it because I was blinded by grief and workaholism. 8 months after losing Rachel, the cracks in the company became canyons. One of our largest clients terminated their contract, citing consistent missed deadlines and quality issues. They were right. I wasn't managing the teams properly anymore, and employee morale had plummeted. I tried to salvage the relationship with desperate discounts, but it was too late. They'd already signed with a competitor. Then I discovered that our CFO, someone I'd hired during the expansion phase, had been embezzling funds. Small amounts at first, but over 18 months it totaled nearly $200,000. I had to terminate him, file police reports, deal with lawyers and auditors. More money hemorrhaging, more energy draining away. The venture capital investors started getting nervous. They'd put in $3 million expecting aggressive growth, but our revenue was declining. They demanded board meetings, wanted to see recovery plans, threatened to pull out. I scrambled to present optimistic projections, but we both knew the numbers didn't add up. Cash flow became critical. We had 100 employees with salaries to pay, office leases in 4 cities, equipment costs, and declining income. I started laying people off. First 10, then 20, then 30. Each termination meeting broke me a little more. These were people with families, mortgages, lives that depended on their paychecks. I stopped sleeping properly, took prescription sleep medication that barely worked, would wake at 2 a.m. with my heart racing, thinking about payroll, investors, creditors, lost 25 pounds, developed an ulcer, but I kept pushing, kept pretending everything would somehow work out. Jake tried to talk to me multiple times. Dad, maybe it's time to consider shutting down gracefully before things get worse. I exploded at him. You're 17. What do you know about running a business? He looked hurt and walked away. I felt terrible, but was too proud to apologize. Emma stopped talking to me altogether. She'd leave for school before I woke up and lock herself in her room when she got home. One night I overheard her crying on the phone with her grandmother. I miss Mom so much, and Dad's like a ghost. I feel like I lost both parents. That conversation shattered something inside me, but I still didn't know how to fix it. 1 year after Rachel's passing, the situation became unsustainable. The investors pulled out, taking their capital and leaving us with massive operational costs we couldn't cover. I maxed out business credit lines trying to keep afloat. Then I made the worst decision of my life. I took out a personal loan from a predatory lender at 40% annual interest. I borrowed $150,000, using our home as collateral. It was insanity, I knew it, but I was desperate and not thinking clearly. I used the money to make payroll and pay the most urgent vendors. It bought me 3 months of breathing room, nothing more. Those 3 months passed in a nightmarish blur. The debt with the predatory lender ballooned to over $200,000, with fees and interest. They started calling daily, then hourly, making veiled threats about foreclosing on my house. The house Rachel and I had bought together, where we'd raised our kids, where every room held memories of her. That's when Pastor Mike showed up at my house unannounced on a Saturday morning. I was in the backyard, staring at nothing, lost in dark thoughts. He sat next to me silently for several minutes. Then he said simply, "David, you don't have to carry this alone." I broke down. For the first time in over a year, I told someone everything. The company failing, the crushing debt, the predatory lenders threatening our home, the fear of losing everything Rachel and I had built. I cried like a child while Pastor Mike just held me and let me release all that pain. "David," he said after I calmed down, "you've been trying to stay standing in your own strength. Humans weren't designed for that. We were made to depend on God and on each other. You pushed God away when you needed him most." His words hit hard because they were true. He prayed with me right there, a simple but powerful prayer. Asked for wisdom for the decisions I needed to make, provision for our needs, and most importantly, that I could surrender everything into God's hands. When he finished, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long, a tiny spark of peace. Over the next few days, I made difficult but necessary decisions. Called a company-wide meeting and was brutally honest. The company was failing, and I had to let most people go. Some cried, others got angry. I understood both reactions. I guaranteed that everyone would receive their final paychecks and severance, even if it meant liquidating everything. I started selling company assets. Computers, servers, office furniture, everything. Closed down the satellite offices and consolidated to a tiny space. Kept only 5 employees who were willing to stay at reduced salaries while we attempted to finish existing contracts and wind things down properly. The house situation was more complicated. Pastor Mike connected me with a Christian attorney who agreed to help pro bono. He filed legal actions to protect us from the predatory lender's harassment and tried negotiating the debt down. It was a lengthy, painful process, but at least I had someone fighting with me. Even with all the cuts and asset sales, it wasn't enough. I had to face reality. The company wouldn't survive. I could keep bleeding out, accumulating more debt, or I could close it down with whatever dignity remained. It was the hardest decision of my life, letting go of 15 years of work, of the dream Rachel and I had built together. I called a final company meeting and announced we were shutting down. The 5 employees who'd stayed looked devastated. I promised they'd all receive proper severance, even if it meant selling my personal belongings. It was a matter of integrity and faith. I had to do right by these people who'd been loyal to the end. The official dissolution process took months. Countless meetings with bankruptcy attorneys, accountants, creditors, the State Commerce Department. Each document I signed felt like burying another piece of my dream. The company Rachel and I had poured everything into was being systematically dismantled and erased. When it was all officially over, I had nothing left. Company dissolved, assets liquidated, debts that would take years to pay off even though I'd sold almost everything. The attorney managed to save our house from foreclosure through legal maneuvering, but just barely. We were 30 days away from losing it when the judgment came through. I was 48 years old, bankrupt, widowed, emotionally destroyed, and spiritually lost. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the man staring back. Gaunt, aged, hollow-eyed, the man who once had a tech empire now had no purpose to get out of bed. I had reached absolute rock bottom. The first months after the company's official closure, I fell into severe depression. Didn't leave the house for days, barely showered, ate only when Jake or Emma insisted. They were terrified for me. Emma had moved back home from her first semester of college specifically to keep an eye on me. One afternoon, I found a box of old photos in the garage. Pictures from when Rachel was alive, from building the company, from when the kids were small. There was one of us in our cramped apartment with our first computer setup, Rachel smiling beside me with that radiant smile. I sat on the garage floor and cried for hours looking at that photo. That night, Jake came into my room and sat on the edge of the bed. Dad, Mom wouldn't want to see you like this. She'd want you to actually live, not just exist. It hurt to hear, but it was truth. Rachel had always been strong, resilient. She'd overcome obstacles with faith and determination. And here I was, giving up on everything. The following Sunday, after almost 2 years away, I went back to church. Arrived late intentionally, sat in the very back row. Didn't want to talk to anyone, just needed to be there. The worship started and I couldn't sing, just listened. Tears streamed down silently while the congregation sang about God's faithfulness. Pastor Mike preached about Job, about how he lost everything but didn't curse God. He talked about how sometimes God allows us to lose temporal things to gain something eternal. I don't know if he knew I was there, but every word seemed aimed directly at my broken heart. At the end, he gave an altar call for anyone suffering, anyone who'd lost hope. Something inside me shattered. I stood up and walked to the front, something I'd never done in decades of being a Christian. Pastor Mike saw me, came down from the platform and embraced me. There in front of the whole church, I fell apart. Cried for losing Rachel, for losing the business, for losing myself. And I felt the community's arms holding me up. After service, multiple people approached me, not with pity but with genuine love. Brothers and sisters who had similar stories of loss and rebuilding. An older man named Frank, whom I knew casually, invited me for coffee during the week. David, I've been where you are. We should talk. Frank was 72 and had an incredible story. He'd owned a successful construction company that went bankrupt in the 2008 financial crisis. Lost everything, nearly lost his marriage, contemplated ending his life. But he rebuilt. Started over at 60, now lived simply but happily, worked as a mentor to young contractors. David, he told me over that coffee, losing everything was the best thing that happened to me. Sounds crazy to say, but it's true. I'd built an empire but lost my soul in the process. God had to dismantle everything to rebuild me the right way. His words echoed in my mind for days afterward. I started real therapy, not just taking medication. The therapist helped me process Rachel's loss in a healthy way. She explained that I'd never properly grieved her passing. I'd just run to work and then to financial chaos. I needed to do the grief work before I could move forward with my life. In our sessions, we talked extensively about identity. David, who are you when you're not the successful CEO? That question haunted me. I'd built my entire identity around the company, around financial success, around social recognition and reputation. Without those things, I genuinely didn't know who I was anymore. I started reading the Bible again with fresh eyes. Read about Abraham having to leave everything behind, about Joseph being sold into slavery before becoming a governor, about David hiding in caves as a fugitive, about Paul losing everything, his status, his career, his reputation, to gain Christ. All of them went through wilderness before reaching the promise. Pastor Mike invited me to join a men's accountability group that met Tuesday mornings. About 12 men of various ages, each with their own struggles. There, I learned I wasn't alone. Men battling addictions, struggling with unemployment, dealing with divorce, fighting illness. We were all broken people trying to stand together. Frank offered me work. He needed someone to help with the administrative side of his consulting practice. The pay was a fraction of what I used to make. Actually, it was less than I'd paid my junior developers. But I accepted with genuine gratitude. I needed routine, purpose, a reason to feel useful again. Starting at the bottom at 48 was humbling, but my ego was already so bruised that one more blow didn't matter. Working with Frank, I learned something revolutionary. He didn't work just for money. His consulting focused on helping young Christian contractors start their businesses right. He charged minimal fees, sometimes worked for free. David, God restored everything I lost and much more. Now my work is helping others avoid the mistakes I made. I began seeing the possibility of a different life. Not a life trying to recreate what I'd lost, but something completely new. A life where I wasn't defined by my business success or failure, but by my character, my faith. The relationships I built and maintained. Jake graduated high school with honors and got into a good engineering program with a full scholarship. Emma decided to switch her major to counseling, saying she wanted to help people dealing with loss like our family had experienced. Watching my kids become resilient, compassionate adults, despite everything we'd been through, filled my heart with pride I didn't deserve. One evening, on the 2nd anniversary of Rachel's passing, we held a family memorial at home. Just me, Jake, and Emma. We talked about her, remembered good stories, cried together, laughed together, and for the first time, I could thank God for the 20 years I had with her, instead of only mourning that it wasn't longer. 6 months into working with Frank, he made an unexpected proposal. David, you have a gift for understanding business, and you have a powerful story of failure and recovery. What if we became partners? We could expand the consulting practice, help more people. I was stunned. Me who'd gone bankrupt becoming someone's business partner. We discussed it extensively. Frank was clear. I'm not offering this out of pity. It's because I see something valuable in you. You fell, but you're getting back up the right way. You're seeking God, restoring your family, learning humility. Those are the qualities I want in a partner. I accepted, but with conditions. Half of everything I earned would go toward paying off my old debts. I wouldn't build anything new on a foundation of unpaid obligations. Frank agreed, and even helped me restructure a more realistic payment plan with remaining creditors. If this story is touching your heart, comment. God restores what time took away. Let's create a chain of faith and hope. 18 months after starting to work with Frank, something extraordinary happened. We were called to help a young startup that was teetering on the edge of failure. It was a husband-wife team with one toddler, trying to survive with a small app development company. Their situation reminded me so much of Rachel and me at the beginning. When I walked into their tiny office space, I saw the same fire in that couple's eyes that I'd seen in Rachel 20 years ago. Determination mixed with fear, faith mixed with uncertainty, love for each other mixed with the tension of financial difficulties. My heart ached with recognition. We spent weeks analyzing their business. I discovered the problems were fundamental: disorganized management, wrong pricing strategy, lack of financial controls. Things that could be fixed. But more than that, I realized they were making the same mistake I'd made, putting the business above everything, including their family and their marriage. I sat down with the couple one afternoon and told them my complete story. Building the company, the success, losing Rachel, the bankruptcy, rock bottom, the restart. They listened in silence with tears in their eyes. When I finished, the wife said, "That's exactly what's happening to us. We're losing ourselves while trying to save the business. We helped them restructure the company, but we also helped them restructure their lives. Established healthy work hours, sacred family time, a weekly rest day. Taught them that success isn't just revenue, but balance. Within 4 months, their business was profitable again, and their marriage was stronger than ever." It was in that moment I understood my true purpose. It wasn't to build a tech empire. It wasn't to accumulate wealth or recognition. It was to use my story of failure and recovery to help other entrepreneurs avoid making the same mistakes. It was to transform my pain into purpose, my mess into a message. The consulting practice started growing organically. Small business owners sought us out, many referred by others we'd helped. But our focus was never on getting big. It was on helping well, with excellence, always maintaining the balance we preached so strongly. We wouldn't make that mistake again. Jake surprised me one day by coming home with news. He'd been promoted at his engineering firm and would earn significantly more. "Dad, I want to help you pay off your old debts faster." I initially refused, but he insisted. "Dad, you taught me that family helps each other. Let me do this." I accepted, deeply moved. Emma was also thriving. She was doing her counseling internship and was already recognized for the sensitivity with which she treated her clients. One day she told me, "Dad, losing Mom and nearly losing you too taught me about life's fragility. I want to use that to help people." My heart overflowed with pride. At church, Pastor Mike invited me to share my testimony one Sunday. I initially resisted. It meant exposing my wounds, my failures, my shame publicly. But he persisted. "David, your story could liberate others who are trapped in the same snare you were." I agreed. That Sunday I walked up to the pulpit with trembling legs. I looked at the congregation and saw so many tired faces, so many people probably carrying heavy burdens alone. I took a deep breath and began. Told them about building the empire, losing Rachel, the bankruptcy, wanting to give up entirely. But mainly, I told them how God used rock bottom to rebuild me. How he removed everything I thought defined me to show me who I really was, a beloved son, regardless of achievements or failures. How he transformed my wilderness into fertile ground for a purpose far greater than I'd imagined. When I finished, there was profound silence in the church. Then people began standing and applauding. But these weren't applause of approval for my performance. They were applause of identification, of hope, of people seeing that it was possible to rise after falling. Several men came to talk with me afterward, crying, sharing their own struggles. 3 years after losing everything, my life was completely different. I no longer had $1 million company, luxury cars, or a fat bank account. But I had something far more valuable: inner peace, clear purpose, restored relationships. I woke up every day knowing exactly why I was alive. The consulting practice prospered in a healthy way. Frank and I were more than partners, we were brothers. We worked 4 days a week, leaving 3 for family, rest, and ministry. We earned enough to live comfortably without luxuries, help people, and gradually pay off old debts. Jake met a wonderful young woman at church, and they started dating seriously. Watching my son build a healthy relationship with the right foundation filled me with joy. Emma was finishing her degree with excellent grades and already had a job offer at a Christian counseling center. One day, visiting Rachel's grave, I talked to her as if she were there listening. "Love, it took me so long to understand, but now I see. You always tried to show me that what mattered wasn't the company's size, but the size of our love. That success isn't measured in money, but in moments. I didn't listen when you were here, but I promise I've learned now. I'm living the way you always wanted us to live, and I'm teaching this to others so they don't lose what truly matters like I did." I felt an inexplicable peace in that moment. It wasn't the shattering pain of loss anymore, but a gentle longing mixed with gratitude for the years we had together. Rachel had taught me more in her life than I managed to understand. Now, in her absence, I was finally learning those lessons. I bought a used guitar and started relearning to play, something I'd abandoned decades ago for lack of time. Jake and Emma were shocked when they saw me practicing. "Dad, I didn't even know you played," said Emma. "I'd forgotten too, sweetheart," I replied, smiling. "We started a new family tradition. Every Saturday evening, we'd have a special dinner at home. I'd cook. Yes, I learned to really cook, not just microwave frozen meals. Jake and Emma would help. We'd talk, laugh, remember Rachel without sadness, just with love. Afterward, I'd grab the guitar and we'd play worship songs together. At the consulting practice, we decided to do something different. Once a month, we'd provide free services to an entrepreneur in difficulty who couldn't afford to pay. It was our way of giving back everything we'd received. Seeing hope return to the eyes of desperate people like I'd been was indescribable. One of these cases marked me profoundly. It was a 55-year-old man who'd lost everything and was considering giving up on life entirely. He reminded me so much of myself in that darkest moment. I spent hours talking with him, not just about business, but about life, about faith, about new beginnings. 3 months later, he came back to thank me. "You saved my life," he said, crying. "It wasn't me," I responded. "It was God using my broken story." The men's group at church became an essential part of my week. There I wasn't the consultant, the ex-CEO, the widower. I was just David, a man in process, fighting to be better each day. We shared victories and defeats, prayed for each other, held each other accountable. I helped create a ministry at church focused on men in crisis, unemployed, divorced, bereaved, bankrupt. We used my story and other brothers' stories to show that God specializes in new beginnings. The ministry grew, and we saw dozens of lives being transformed. I paid off my final debt 4 years after the bankruptcy. It was a symbolic and powerful moment. I personally called each creditor to thank them for their patience. Some were surprised. They didn't expect to receive anything more. "I'm a Christian," I explained, "and my word has to mean something. It took time, but I'm paying as I promised." That attitude opened unexpected doors. One of those creditors owned a retail chain and called me for consulting. "Any man who does what you did, who breaks but keeps his word, is someone I can trust." We became long-term partners. Jake got married in a beautiful, simple ceremony. At the altar, he asked me to say a special prayer. With my voice breaking, I prayed, asking God to bless that couple, that they always put their relationship above material achievements, that they learn from my mistakes without having to go through the same to learn. I couldn't finish without crying. Emma graduated and started working at a clinic, but also volunteered counseling low-income people on Saturdays. "Dad, I learned from you that our gifts aren't just for making money, but for blessing lives," she told me one day. In that moment, I felt that despite all my mistakes, I'd managed to leave some good legacy for my children. Today, at 52 years old, I look back and see the winding path I traveled. The achievements, the losses, the falls, the restarts. And I can say with total conviction, losing everything was painful, but finding my true purpose was liberating. I had built an empire, but it was an empty empire. I'd accumulated wealth but was poor in soul. I'd gained recognition but had lost myself. God needed to break all of that to show me what really matters. I learned that true success isn't how much you have, but who you are. It's not how many people know your name, but how many lives you've truly touched. It's not the size of your company, but the size of your heart. It's not about building empires that will crumble, but about building relationships that last forever. I learned that God allows losses not to destroy us, but to rebuild us better. That sometimes He needs to empty our hands so He can fill them with better things. That the wilderness is necessary before the promised land. That rock bottom can be the beginning of the highest flight. Today, I wake up every day and give thanks. Thanks for the 20 years I had with Rachel. Thanks for the wonderful children we have. Thanks for the bankruptcy that broke me but freed me. Thanks for Frank, who extended his hand. Thanks for the church that welcomed me. Thanks for each person my story can help. If you're reading this now and you're at rock bottom, I want you to know this isn't the end. It feels like it, hurts like it, but it's not. It's the beginning of something new God wants to do in you. He doesn't waste pain. He transforms tragedy into testimony, mess into message, test into testimony. You lost everything? Maybe it was necessary. Maybe you were building in the wrong place, with the wrong materials, for the wrong reasons. Maybe God needs to do a complete demolition to build something solid, eternal, with real purpose. Don't fear the restart. Don't be ashamed of the fall. We all fall. The difference is in who gets up and lets God use the scar as a victory tattoo. Your failure story can become your greatest ministry. Your deepest pain can become your greatest platform to help others. Jesus said, "Without me, you can do nothing." It took me 48 years and a bankruptcy to truly understand that. I tried to do everything in my own strength, in my own timing, my own way, and it collapsed. When I finally surrendered everything to Him, when I stopped trying to control and started trusting, everything changed. Today, I don't have an empire, but I have peace. I don't have material wealth, but I have wealth of purpose. I don't have public recognition, but I have the embrace of people whose lives were touched. And that, my friend, is priceless. That no one can take away. That will last forever. 3 things for you to do now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more real transformation stories to share this video with someone who lost everything and needs hope. 3, comment below. Which part of this story touched you most? Have you also lost everything? Share your story, let's support each other. And if you want a specific prayer word for your financial or emotional crisis situation, leave it in the comments and I'll pray for each one individually. Remember, God specializes in transforming ruins into new beginnings. He did it for me, He'll do it for you too. See you next Sunday with another real story of faith and overcoming. Until then, hold on to God's hand and don't let go. Even when everything collapses, He doesn't let go of you. I was living proof of that. Strong hug. God bless your life and your family.